SFJ 4x4 Studios presents
in my oversized four-wheel drive Jeep.
a Jeep podcast starring industry experts.
Pure monosity. What? Say that again.
With mad scientist Scott Brown,
Use my drill press as a sort of lathe.
our host Neil Simpson,
If one light goes out, they all go out.
filled with shenanigans.
We are really professional with Jeeps.
This is I Speak Jeep.
You know they can't hear that.
I
right?
know they can't hear that, but I thought they need to be exposed to it.
I apologize already this morning.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak GOAT. And when I say that, I mean greatest of all time, I Speak Jeep SFJ 4x4 podcast, presented by SFJ4x4.com. Big shout out to one of our Patreons, listeners, customers, all around good character for producing some really cool graphics for us that say SFJ4x4.com. Folks, if you are joining us via your ear holes, you know, it's important that you can actually join us live on Facebook at 10:19 a.m. every Monday, because that's where we are right now with our live audience who's joining in via the Book of Faces comments.
Speaking of, good morning, Darla.
Nice. Good morning,
morning,
Darla. As I mentioned, my name is Neil with Simpson Family Jeeps, joined as usual with the full-blooded Italian stallion, the Italian producer.
Not full-blooded.
You know what, folks? I heard his name, and it's so fun because obviously we pronounce everything in our westernized American culture, but he likes to really get in there and roll his
Chiaramonte.
Chiaramonte. I
I'm
can't.
not doing that.
Chiara.
I can't make my tongue
You
roll
know
like
there's
that.
a
I
town-
took like 4 years of Spanish, and I still can't roll my tongue like that.
He has a town in,
Now, how do
in
you-
Italy named after him, or he's after that, or something.
Yeah. Well, there's an entire
Did you
town,
know
a
that
castle.
Chiaramonte, which Chiaramonte, if you're from America, actually means clear person?
Yeah,
I just think
I can
that's
see right through him.
right. Right.
Dave Ammerman chimed in, said hi, too.
Good morning, Dave. Absolutely. All right. So, anyways, the producer, the Italian stallion, and then this other guy over here that.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Who's this other guy, then?
Mad scientist Scott Brown.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah.
There we are.
That was it.
There.
That's it.
Jeff didn't have to introduce himself today. It's all good.
No, he needs to do his spiel. He needs to.
Well, yeah. Welcome in. If you are just tuning in for the first time, hope you enjoy the show. Otherwise, if you've listened in, go on, like, subscribe.
I promise I don't always make goat noises.
No, but it's always something. An accent, a singing, something. That's what you guys are in tune for.
Yeah.
But we also going to have the Patreon with the 3 tiers, so check that out. And make sure you give us that 5-star review. We're looking for those reviews.
We are, and we appreciate that. We read those and we try to respond to things. We do genuinely and actively appreciate everything that our friends, family, listeners, customers, the whole shooting match. We really do actively appreciate the baked goods that people have been bringing in, which is
it's been phenomenal.
phenomenal.
Yes.
Obviously, the graphics that that Chip made and he put on his Jeep and then dropped us off. I actually am wearing this nice bracelet made by some students at a school, in the county. They actually, one of them follows us on YouTube, and so he made
Cool.
me a nice bracelet
Oh, that's
in
pretty
our
cool.
colors and the SFJ on there. Isn't that cool?
That's really cool.
Yeah, it kind of beaded me up a neat bracelet, so appreciate them doing that.
Daddy Jeep is saying good morning.
What's going on, Rob?
And Tony Thompson is saying good morning.
Hey, Tony. You know what? I think Rob had a big weekend in his garage, and it's important to note, folks, you're listening in, and I appreciate people who listen to us, but when you friend me on the Book of Faces,
You let him in.
you let me in. Just want you to know that that when you do that, I am a voyeur of all things, and people can get a little weirded out. So I'm just leading with it, going, you let me in. So Rob is doing repairs on his Dub J.
Guys,
And
Almost ready for-
Tony's working today too.
Almost got us ready for his back bumper to go back on.
I know. I saw that, and I think Tony's working in the garage today, or he mentioned something to that effect. I'm there, folks. I'm following along just the same as you are with us. So I like to say, because of the many twists and turns that my own life has taken over the last 5-7 years, the wheeling adventures, the actual working on the service floor, so on and so forth. I don't have all the opportunities I once had, that I live vicariously through folks who are doing really cool things on a daily.
Yep.
So I'm here for it. I am. This is episode number 67, and it's funny to say we're only 67 episodes in, and we've had some phenomenal success in the podcast community, and we thank all of our listeners for that. We'll be talking about.
Well, before
Go
talk
ahead.
about the success, what did you get messaged?
Oh, I had a fantastic interaction this morning. I had a text message from a coworker from about 12 years ago, 12 or 13 years ago. I worked with this individual, and she had recently been exposed to our to the podcast, and I don't know, whether it was through a streaming platform, Audible, Spotify, Google Cast, so on and so forth, or whether it was, through the internets. But she'd recently been exposed to the podcast, enjoyed it. But more importantly, she was at the McDonald's getting her morning Joe, I guess, maybe breakfast.
And she saw your smiling face.
And she saw my smiling face on
How'd she see your smiling face?
on a sticker, on our official podcast sticker, on the back of somebody's Jeep. So
So if you ever wondered if you should get one, that shows the show.
You
just need to get one.
should. You should get it. It's $4.19. It directly benefits the show, and we appreciate that. And that obviously made a connection for her, because she saw the podcast, and then all of a sudden she's sitting in McDonald's. She's a couple towns away. She's not local. It's not somebody who's immediately in our customer inner circles or something. And she looks up, and there's our podcast show stickers on the back of somebody's Jeep. So,
Awesome.
First of all, thank you to whoever had that appropriately displayed. Obviously, they're here, patronizing the podcast.
Well, the best part is none of us recognized the Jeep that it was on.
No doubt. And that was really neat. And she had an opportunity, and she appropriately reached out to me. She took a picture. She said, hey, I recently saw your podcast. It's really cool. And here you are on a Jeep in front of me at McDonald's.
So, ever since last week's episode, the comments have been on fire with things. Real quick, Dale saying good morning, SFJ
Good morning,
crew.
Dale.
Good morning, Dale.
Tony is saying doing rear upper control arm frame repairs. Oh, what fun, LOL.
Oh, yeah.
And then Joe Brilla is the one that's commenting on last week's episode, I believe. Expose yourself to the podcast. Bring your own trench coat. If you did not watch last week's episode, you need to go back and listen, watch, whatever.
Yes. However you can, you can join us.
Even the first 10 minutes of it, you'll understand.
Feel called out.
You should. You should feel
you
called
should
out.
absolutely
I
feel called
love
out.
the fact that we carried that on through the week, and we just talked about your innocence, and you had no intention to make any phallic comments,
Nope.
but yet here we are.
Here we are.
And then Brad is saying, good morning, fellows. I'm a bit tardy today.
Morning, Brad. No, there's always room for more, and that's important. If you are listening to us, you might not have every Monday off, but try to join us. Jump in on those comments. We're going to try and read as many as are appropriate. Try not to get yourself banned from the Book of Faces.
Chuck.
Here's looking at you, Chuck. And we really don't have any regulation over that, but that's up on you. And obviously, the comments typically are a good place to hang out and meet and talk with other Jeepers. So we are going to be this episode will be a continuation of the 2-letter insignias.
We're going to fix a wrong.
We're going to fix a wrong. That is the case. And
Tony's saying last week's episode was the OnlyFans edition.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
if only.
So
I'm here for it, Tony.
So
I'm
Jeff,
here.
didn't you work on your trailer this weekend?
Well, and then, wait a second, in our hashtag not sponsored, because you're going to want to hang out for this, we're going to be talking about one of our favorite accessory switch systems, which you can retrofit onto or within any project you're doing. So whether it be vintage or your newest Jeep platforms, or just your four-wheeler that you're, or side-by-side that you're...
Or your easy chair. We don't judge.
You of all people would do that.
Wow.
80-year-old man.
Yeah.
Chuck is saying off. I'm not off. Crime stops at 10:19
That's right.
on Mondays.
On Mondays. And if we are joining you in your office space and or your work line, I know that Jeep, actually the mothership, we have been broadcast onto the production line at times, and or obviously in the squad car or the office or before your phone call meetings. Joe Harper.
Speaking of, Jerry is chiming in saying, glad to see you were all energized this morning.
We're feeling good.
They got their coffee.
Extra
And I got
coffee
my low
and
cut.
sunshine.
And Paul Clapp is saying, morning. Anyone else wonder why the start time is 10:19?
Because Neil.
Oh man, I didn't grow up thinking that I was the weird guy. It took me a long time.
So if you
Let that
don't
sink
know
in
a
for
weird
a
person in
minute.
your neighborhood,
That is the issue. Was that
you're probably it.
Woo, goodness. Who's that guy? All right. You worked on your trailer a lot this weekend,
Yes, I did.
and it's looking fantastic. If you don't know, folks, you can follow him along on his Instagram.
And
the
I didn't
Italian producer.
upload those pictures
I know
yet.
you didn't, because our Patreons are going to get them first.
That's
I think.
right.
Yep.
I saw you had like 2 seconds of warmth and sunshine, and you painted the frame.
I don't know that it was warmth, but
What did you paint it with?
I used the Rust-Oleum enamel paint.
Okay. The high performance.
The high
paint.
performance, yeah. I took a gallon of it, put it in my airless sprayer, and sprayed.
Hey, folks, while that's not one of the primary products that we use when servicing Jeeps, we typically stick to your Chassis Saver by Magnet Paints or your POR 15. I gotta be honest, the Rust-Oleum high performance enamel is, for DIY purposes, one of my favorite DIY paints.
Oh yeah.
And stuff just bites, and it does kick. So you have to. It doesn't kick the same way that Chassis Saver or POR does.
Yeah.
Um,
Comes off your hands a little easier too.
it comes off just a little easier
No.
off your equipment.
Not off your hands. No.
Right.
It's an oil-based paint. It's not.
is.
It's not washing off with soap and water like a latex or water-based paint.
Right. So, anyways, you paint your frame. It looks gorgeous. You give it a quick quick upchurch there.
So I actually ground the frame. Got rid of a lot of the rough spots first, and then I used a POR metal prep.
Okay.
And metal prepped it first, so it kind of had
A nice
flash,
base.
a zinc flash on it.
Yep.
And then I painted it. So
You really did best case scenario, because while I think that high performance enamel is DTM, direct to metal, you actually went ahead and did a zinc phosphate on it, is what you're
Yeah.
saying?
You're hanging out around Greg too much.
Wow.
I
That's
just
fantastic.
I wanted to make sure I was doing as best case scenario for terrible outside weather conditions.
I agree 100%. That's sometimes as a
Last
DIYer, you have to do what you have to do, man.
So
That is awesome. Good for you. I remember, starting my own projects. I had that Scrambler frame years ago, and I was using the acid etch primer, to
Yeah.
bite the metal and whatnot. And I was feeling pretty good about myself because I didn't grow up doing that, right? We just grabbed a paint and just brushed it onto the frame, however. And so when you really learn how these chemicals interact with say, the metal surfaces and whatnot, that's awesome. Good for you. So anyways, you do this. Frame looks beautiful.
So that was during the week last week. I think it was Wednesday. We had nice weather and
Okay.
nice-ish
Two
for
seconds.
here for 2 seconds, and then it started raining. So I got the paint on. The rain wasn't supposed to hit for about 6 hours. It hit like 2 hours after I painted. I'm like,
Well,
of
if you're
course.
using POR 15, apparently that makes
that's
it
actually
better.
a good thing.
It's
yeah.
actually a good thing.
Yeah,
yes.
I don't know, but POR 15 versus that enamel paint was like quadruple the price. So,
Yes.
DIY, sticking in that budget, trying to do the best I can.
Right.
So,
right.
then this weekend, in the cold, like 30-degree temperatures and snow, I was able to actually build the deck. So it is fully decked. I insulated it. I put a vapor barrier on there. I have the underbelly wrap on there. So that's all looking very nice.
Are you having plumbing in this thing?
So we are not going to plumb on this right now.
Okay.
She wants to use the compostable stuff.
Yep.
So that's the route we're going.
Okay. All right. So you're not going to the piece I always have with that vapor barrier and that the underbelly wrap is you end up hole sawing through that at some point in
Correct.
time. And the cheaper trailers, you have to watch out because they won't put any type of rubber booting or siliconing or anything like that. And now all of a sudden,
You mean they don't use Flex Seal?
Yeah, they don't use Flex Seal. And then all of a sudden you have, kind of negates that whole space there where you have
No, then the
that
suck
barrier.
just holds the water in. I know all about that.
Well, that's true, too.
Yep.
That is true. Yeah, you do know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the trailer looks fantastic. I can't wait for you to throw those pictures out there, the Patreons, and then you'll eventually throw them out to the rest of the
Instagram, yeah.
Instagram. No doubt. I was attempting to work on the house on Saturday, and I was like, I'm not here for this mess, and, hung out with the kids.
Yeah, it was pretty cold.
Yeah, it was
I
blustery.
I made Kristen come out and help me because the decking I built in 4 sections, and I built it on the trailer first. Then I took all those off the trailer, tried to lay the under wrap in the high wind conditions. That was not fun.
Oh, that was the worst.
Oh, it was terrible. So Kristen was out trying to help me with this, and we're fighting the wind. We're putting blocks of wood and weights
Yes.
on it, trying to hold it in place, and it's just throwing the wood across the yard.
I was carrying 4x8 sheets of OSB into my house at that time.
That's fine.
I was a kite.
So I had 5 sheets of plywood that I had to bring out
Yes.
from the garage in that wind to try to get them laid on there. So it was a fight, but
Yeah.
in the end, it all looks great. Kristen was cursing at me, wants to move to the Bahamas, but other than that,
Good luck with that.
Ryan says morning.
Good morning, Ryan. Well, that's quite a day for you. Quite nice progress. Where are we at on our budget?
So I actually brought that with me.
I know you did.
'Cause I
I'm
knew you
sure
were
you
gonna
did. Oh
ask.
yeah, because I'm going to ask.
So last we left off, I had $26.91 left in the budget of the 4,000. I spent $500 getting all the DOT lights, battery box, wiring, metal prep, rear bumper, and a breakaway kit. Another $900 on tires, wheels, a power center, tongue jack, power cord, and a 30 amp outlet. And then another $200 between the paint, the plastic, the plywood, liquid nails, lag screws, and washers.
He's only got $900 left, and he's got
I've got $1,078 left in my $4,000 budget. The
he's
aluminum is scaring me right
He's
now.
got to put walls and a roof on
Well,
this thing.
I have all the lumber for the walls and roof. It's the aluminum siding that I'm scared of right now.
Mm-hmm. As
Uh-huh.
you should be.
But other than that,
Folks, I want you to just, if you want to comment in, you want to comment on how much is Jeffrey going to go over budget? This is like the Price is Right.
we're going over at
2
this point.
bills.
I
Two bills.
I told you think I'm going $2,000 over?
Yeah.
I have almost everything. You think the
Oh,
aluminum's going
okay.
to cost me
The
$3,000?
devil is in the details,
Yes.
man. The hardest push is when the vehicle looks like a
She
vehicle.
hasn't started to pick out interior furnishments
When
yet.
the house
We have all of
starts
it.
to look like a house.
I know
Oh,
you
okay.
think you do.
Oh,
It's
okay.
okay, Jeff.
No,
It'll be
she-
okay.
The fact
She
that
is-
they're not doing plumbing, I think,
No.
is going to be their savior.
she-
I tried to dissuade that.
But she's more of a minimalist than I am. So as far as the interior
okay.
stuff,
It's
we're
okay.
literally
It'll be
reusing
okay,
a
Jeff.
couch bed that we have for the
It'll be
main
okay.
bed. Well, I'm explaining to you. She's not going to be adding as much as you think.
I remember when I was in your position, man. It's okay.
I love it. No, you just keep documenting. You just keep documenting, and reuse and repurpose is fantastic for the
Yes.
budget. What are you doing for a door?
I have it.
Well, what is it?
I have 2 camper doors from the old
You just-
camper.
oh,
I
you
saved
kept
them.
the camper
Yeah.
doors. Okay.
I kept them. One of them had shattered window. The other one is great. And I went, well, between the 2 of them, I can make one really good door.
Nice.
I have the insulation that I put in the trailer was left over from my house project, so I didn't have to buy insulation. I still have leftover insulation.
Are you insulating the walls?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have most of that. I probably will have to buy another roll or 2 to finish it, but we'll see. As far as the sealants, I have butyl tape. I have flashing tape. I have a lot of that still.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm just going to say something out in the universe and we'll let it go. I have almost what I said you're going to go over, just fixing my camper.
I get it.
And I had free labor.
Oftentimes, I had free. Well, his labor is free as well.
Correct.
All right. And speaking of fixing things, how's that car of yours going?
So I
Well, before we get into it, there is a long slew of comments, so let me try to catch a couple up. Tony was saying the Schoolyum building has a full bathroom now with a jetted tub, porcelain throne, not plumbed fully yet. A jetted tub in a school bus. That's kind of cool.
That's fantastic.
makes perfect sense to me.
Fantastic.
I'm digging that.
Right?
I want to see pictures. Chuck said the fun begins after it's built. Budgetary trauma inbound.
Yes.
Yeah. Darla is saying, I think all projects should be called snowballs. They just keep rolling bigger and bigger.
Bigger and bigger.
That they do.
Mm-hmm.
And Brad is saying the last 5% of a project always takes 30% of time and resources. Math be damned.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
concur.
Agree entirely.
All right, now we can talk about your car.
So I
And the breaking of budgets.
I
and,
did-
Well, his-
and the will.
his budget's
will and
so far gone.
expectation.
I don't write it down anymore. I don't keep track. I don't want to know. I remember back when I used to write everything down like Jeff is doing. Nope.
I'm only doing it for you guys.
I don't need
I
any
know you are.
evidence
We
laying
know.
around.
I
for
really
anybody
don't want to
later.
know how much I'm spending on it either. Like, I'm on that Lowe's MVP, and I saw how much I've spent for the year at Lowe's already
Yeah.
between house projects and that, and I'm
Yeah.
like, huh,
Yeah.
that's a lot of money that I didn't realize
I did the
spent.
same thing last year. We were supposed to be into our house a year ago, and I'm thinking I spent all of our budget just at Home Depot, and I'm like, why did I do what I'm doing? This
Right.
doesn't make sense.
Yep. So I realized, I've had an inkling that I was going to have an issue, but I removed all the structure from where I've been picking the body up, and I thought, how am I going to do this now? So I got out my trusty ratchet straps, and I tried some part of the car, and I was like, I can go forward a little bit more, and that doesn't seem as strong. So I went right into where the meat and potatoes where I had fixed before, right behind the doors, and a ratchet strap aside, and just click, 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 back and forth, and slowly picked the body up,
Nice.
and got in there and hacked away the last little remnants of the tail pan, and then got out the air hammer and chiseled off all the spot welds. Caused me more work on the driver's side than the other side, but that you'll have that.
Right.
That metal was weak, obviously, so
Weakness has to leave.
then I got out the hammer and dolly, beat that back into somewhat shape so I could test fit it. Got it up in there, drilled some holes, and it's all clecoed in place now. I don't know.
What word did he just say?
Cleco.
I'm trying to figure that
What
out.
is that?
You drill an 1/8 inch hole in your two panels, and you have a big, almost looks like a rivet, but
Almost
it's real
looks
tall.
like a rivet.
There's a special tool. You push on a button on the end of it, and these little fingers come out.
Uh-huh.
You put it through the hole, and they retract, and it holds the panel tightly together.
Nice.
Huh.
Cleco.
And they were made for the aircraft industry to put the aluminum panels on the side of airplanes.
Are they affordable so that Jeffrey can use them to install
I
his
was
own?
just thinking the same thing.
Oh God, yes. You can get like 25 or so for like.
I'm circling back to
30
him real
bucks.
quick. Are you doing wooden uprights on the walls, or are you trying to do a metal upright?
No,
structure?
wooden.
Okay.
You think I have the capability to do metal?
I feel bad for you.
I-
I feel bad for you because I've had campers of both wooden walls and aluminum structure walls,
Yeah.
and I just feel bad for you.
The aluminum structure would probably be stronger, but wood is typical and lightweight enough because you do 2x. So I literally bought.
Remember, he has a half ton. He'll be fine.
I bought 2x4s and split them all in half already. So
That's fine. I don't really care about that.
not in half,
I had wooden campers, because I'm a purveyor of campers.
I have a
So-
wooden camper now. I wish it was metal.
Yours is metal.
No, it's all. I can attest. It is wood.
do you know
Your
that
upright walls are wood.
75% of all campers out there
That wide.
manufactured today are still wood?
Yep.
Ugh.
You pay
I
a
know,
premium for
'cause
the
I
aluminum.
repaired and replaced a lot of it.
Wow, is
It was
that
very
just
wood.
that's just infuriating.
Oh yeah. What do
And
you
that's
want for-
why they're falling apart constantly.
Why do you want? What do you want for 10? To 15 grand.
I want something that's going to last more than 2 years,
If
3
I was
years.
to build
Can't
one,
be
it would be all aluminum. Square stock, all welded together. You drop foam in the cavity, sheet the inside, and stand it up. That's
Yeah.
how I would do it.
And that's if you look at a lot of DIY videos on YouTube,
Yes.
that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are still people stick building like I am, but
Yeah, and I certainly see a lot of the teardrops and stuff, like some of the smaller little adventure trailers out at the side yard, which is yours is just kind of an oversized DIY version
Right.
of that.
correct. And
Um,
the other thing too, though, is when you talk about budgetary costs, the aluminum to do that is
Oh yeah.
way more than
no
it would
doubt.
be for the wood.
Totally.
No doubt. All right, I'm sorry. So back to Clinkoed.
Plinko.
It was a
Plinko.
Christmas present, apparently.
Yep.
Plinko.
That's from your wife?
Yep.
From Price is Right.
You can get them on Amazon.
Okay.
Hashtag not sponsored. And they're great. So it is all clecoed in place, and I sat it back down to mark the holes where the rear frame.
I wonder what
attached
that
to
word
it.
actually is, and if he's saying
I
it
would
correct.
love to
code.
know.
Anyway,
Why would I use Plinko versus
Plinko.
versus rivets?
Daddy
'cause I can
Jeep
take 'em
said
right
his
back
is
out.
all, Daddy Jeep said his is all wooden foam. So
You know what? I had
don't have
that
to
one
drill
time,
or rip it
folks.
out.
I don't want that. I like aluminum walls at this point.
Yep.
All right.
As you should.
Yeah.
Anyways, so then I let the body back down slowly with the ratchet straps, one click at a time, and marked all of my spots. And then I said, I should test the bumper brackets on the back of the frame. And I've got a good 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 an inch gap between those and the panel. And I'm not completely sure why.
Huh.
So if I move the panel down, then suddenly the holes on the side don't line up. I'm not
This
sure.
is a panel
what
you bought, or
yeah, of course.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. It's a very complicated panel. I'd be here for the next 3 years making this thing. So,
okay.
I think I know what I need to do. I just need to modify the brackets. I just have to come to terms with that. So I'm in the stages of coping right now.
grief,
I'm in
man.
denial right now. Like, oh, it'll be okay. Move this, move that.
Yep.
By the end of the week, I'll be cutting stuff and welding and adding
Good.
stuff to it. So.
Good. Yep. Adapt and overcome, folks.
That's right.
That is the biggest piece of advice in DIY or projects or project management. Adapt and overcome.
And as soon as I can figure it out, we're going to completely remove the body with said ratchet straps and lifting apparatus and put it on stands, and the frame will be coming out from
He just
underneath
really
it.
wants to use his tree saver to lift
I
it.
know.
I tried.
but I want to.
I did. I tried. I don't have a high enough roof.
Oh.
I want to see pictures of the ratchet strap.
They're on there.
I didn't see the pictures of the
It's
ratchet
not
strap.
this update, but the update before.
I don't remember seeing them either.
You think people are following along?
I saw the panel. I was looking at that on
Interesting.
Instagram.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, other than fighting the elements myself with the house build, it was pretty uneventful. More supplies, more money out the door. Whatever.
It'll be okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
All
It's
right.
fine. Nothing to
Everything's
see
fine.
here.
So you took a weekend off. Meanwhile, I was doing the camper build, and then I didn't even talk about I built Kristen a whole new work area, 72-inch desk, and a 4x4 square
Nice.
platform for the laser tool
Nice.
because she needed a bigger and more open space and to be under a window so it can properly vent out of
You
the
were
house.
killing it, man. You were on fire.
I'm tired.
Yeah, we're just still working through our process. I actually did a big move because we own too many houses at this point,
Yep.
and so we're working through that and trying to get that house in Pennsylvania listed and ready to go. Apparently there is a super sellers week. Statistically, it's like the second or third week of April is when the most houses sell in the country.
That makes sense.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's that time of year, and then by your time you're closing and everything, you're able to move in right as the good weather's hitting. So
Must be.
statistically, that makes sense to me. You've got your tax money for your deposits.
Maybe.
Who moves when it's nice weather?
Not
You're
me.
supposed
Not
to
me.
move.
I have always moved during the worst winter storms
Yes.
of the year. It's terrible.
Oh,
Nothing's more
gracious.
fun than getting your snow on your couch.
All right, folks. Let's
Sliding
do
down the
this.
ramp
We're
that's
gonna
filled with
right
ice.
a wrong
Yes.
from last week.
Yes.
And what is that, Scott?
Start from the beginning.
We're gonna start from the beginning because as hard as we tried, the ability to for me to contextualize a conversation or
have
or
building blocks,
information,
man.
you have to have building blocks.
Yeah.
And we desperately tried to start with the JLs and work JLs and JTs and work our way backwards.
Well, the voters all chose that.
They
and,
did.
and that was a.
I think they like to see us struggle.
I think-
I
it
think
was
that's
like a
exactly
little
what it was.
I saw they wanted to see that struggle. It made us work
Yes.
for it.
Joe Brillo saying, "As foretold by prophecy."
Yes.
Yes.
So we're gonna start and work our way forward from
Yes.
the get go. You know what? I just recalled there was something that I had wanted to mention.
A Jeep event.
Well, there was the Jeep event as well. So a big shout out to a number of organizers in East Palestine, Ohio, who sought to try and stimulate the economy by putting together a mini Jeep invasion. Definitely some mixed reports as far as how many people showed up and participated. But it looked like there was, from the covers that we could see, good time was had by a lot of people. The intention was to try to, support local eateries and local small businesses, and the Jeep community kind of bonding together and showing support and doing something fun and engaging with our Jeep. So
Through the footage we looked at, it looked like there was a few dozen Jeeps that showed up.
Yes, and that's there was a big shout out to a vintage.
Yes.
Speaking of starting at the beginning, I couldn't tell if that was military. I didn't see the grill.
It was civilian.
Was it civilian?
Yeah.
Vintage, like a 2A or something. I didn't look as
Yeah,
close.
2A or a 3A.
I did want to take a moment to mention, like almost like a little segment of like found on the internet.
Oh. I need to create a transition for this.
You're
now.
going to need to create a transition for me because I'm ready for this. I'm ready to talk about some of the stuff that I'm exposed to, not in the Joe Brilla way. That was on one of the internet's one of the pages, and this person writes that they got their top on their Jeep. They were pretty excited, and they saw a post on how to make their fenders black again. And this is one that we are constantly fighting with, especially if you are, not on a monochromatic platform, so you're not a Sahara or you don't have aftermarket fender flares.
Yes.
We have, since the dawn of plastic flares, been attempting to revitalize them forever, right?
Did they use a garden torch?
No, no, and so it's valuable to know this, right? And I love and adore our listeners. I promise you, I have been dealing with trying to darken my flares since many people ever conceptualize owning a Jeep.
Yeah.
I have been dealing with it for 30 years.
We've tried some stuff.
We've tried some stuff. We've been exposed to it. I've heard every which way, or so I thought.
Oh.
And the garden torch used motor oil back in the day. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry
Well, I hope
has
they're not
a
actually using a
product.
garden torch, but a
But
heat
a
gun.
heat gun
Yeah.
of some
Yeah.
sort.
Totally done that
we used to
before.
try to use. I mean, there was a big push in the '90s to use used oil, which is a terrible idea.
Right.
Well, it keeps your Jeep from rusting.
Okay. On plastic, it's a real bad thing.
Then there's the Meguiar's. I think
Right,
has
that's what I'm
probably,
saying. Every Tom, Dick, and
Chemical
Harry
Guys has
chemical
one.
company has something that does this.
I've seen some paint jobs.
Here's the one. I thought I had
Seen some stuff.
seen some stuff. And this person, as serious as can be,
Well, I'm sure dead
I'm
serious.
a little concerned.
Yeah.
used peanut butter. If my mic was able to be dropped, I would drop it. And that person
The oil of the
legitimately
peanut butter, baby?
That's the only thing I could think is the oils.
And this comes from a guy that's used
So-
toothpaste
I
on
mean-
headlights before.
Yeah.
if
you
that's
have-
if that's the case, are you using like olive oil, vegetable oil, or
which
like
further down the conversation was like, you could probably just use organic oil
Right.
and you've been fine. And the person basically
Coconut
responded
oil.
back, "Oh, I bet that would go on a lot easier than the peanut butter did."
God. Did you notice that maybe birds are following?
Oh,
your
that's what other
Jeep
people were
more
like.
often?
Well, I think you're going to be a friend of the squirrels now.
right?
Right?
We've seen what they do to the inside of the engine compartment.
Oh.
They
dear.
just
Could
put out
you-
a calling card for
Could
'em.
you imagine, like, if you lived like in a suburban environment or
And they-
urban environment,
Your neighbors watching you
and your
peanut
neighbor
butter.
is out there while you open up a tub of Jif,
Yeah.
and you're just peanut buttering.
Jim's lost it.
So we lost video. So when Davey comes back, wherever he's at, we'll have to get video back. But basically,
As long as they can hear us, we're okay.
yeah, they can hear us. So Chuck was saying, is it just me or does a 24 Wrangler grill look very toaster Jeepish? Well, that would work with the peanut butter.
Yes. Yes.
Then, a couple comments about losing the video. And then Dale, peanut butter works good to remove wax that dried on black plastic trim. So I wonder if
Mind
they took that
blown.
idea and...
Like you were doing with the olive oil.
I mean, I've heard of peanut butter for like gum in your hair and that kind of stuff, so I get it to an extent. But I don't know that I agree. I don't know that that's actually going to revitalize
He's
plastic.
totally trying olive oil on his flares later.
No. No, surprisingly, mine haven't ashed out as bad. Like we had
Well,
that one
your
recently.
Jeep's brand new.
Yeah, but we had one newer than mine come in where the whole cow was white.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They live where the sun touches them.
Yeah, the sun touched them, or they put on one of these silicone-based products which pulled all of the
Yeah.
Made it
all
worse.
of
That's
the,
probably
made
what it
worse,
was, yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so that's obviously the issue. Is
Nothing sucks more than I'm going to save you and make it worse.
yes, and that's the problem with some of the silicone-based or petro-based products.
Yes.
Davey's trying to regain our video feed.
Darla is saying, my paint guy is going to paint mine. I hope that will last a little while.
Ideally,
Joe is saying chunky or creamy.
that's what I'm saying, Joe. I mean, there was a whole bunch of
I think we
options.
need a
there.
test.
I think it's got to be creamy.
There's got to be a test. We're gonna have a. I'm just telling you, I wasn't ready for peanut butter on the flares.
Tony is saying olive oil is multifunctional, not going into details.
Oh boy.
Well then,
So maybe Scott's not so innocent after all.
right, right.
boy.
And we're back. It
We're
looks
back.
like.
Yep, we're back.
And it would be a perfect fitting for you, Jeffrey, with your Chiaramonte.
That's why
olive
probably
oil.
went right to olive oil.
Yeah,
I mean,
right?
I always have a bottle of virgin olive oil in the cupboard.
As you
I was
should.
gonna say in his Jeep, like in the center console of his Jeep.
It'd only be better if it was in Grandma's little like ceramic stuff.
Nice. All right, so we're gonna now that we've
Have
talked
you ever
about
made your own Italian dressing?
East-
Because I have.
Of course I make.
I know you
shot,
have.
right. We've talked about the EP invasion, and now we've obviously talked about peanut butter entirely too much. Where do we start with two-letter insignias? What, Jeff?
Real quick,
What?
Chuck's
What?
saying lots of cultures use olive oil on wood. And that's actually, that is a really good thing.
I
That kind of wood, Neil.
I really want
Was
to
it
talk,
this
I
time?
really want to talk about Jeeps because the problem is I know Chuck and I know what he's saying right now,
Yeah.
and I am moving on in my best possible manner so that we can have broad appeal to everybody.
Yeah.
I was trying to be the innocent one this
You
time.
were
but-
really trying to be mature, and I am.
And Chuck's dying laughing at
I
this
am
course he
moment,
is.
so-
trying to.
As he should.
As I'm trying to move on to where do we start?
What?
Mad
So
scientist.
I'm going to
Doc
start
Brown.
with I did no prepping for this, so this is all off the back of my brain kind of scenario. So I apologize if I mess some of these up.
Well, as the mad scientist Doc Brown, we would expect nothing less.
Yes,
Correct.
it's true. Who studied for stuff in school? Not this guy. Anyway,
What's studying?
yeah. So we had
Oh,
we had the Bantams, we had the Willys, and we had the Ford. And we started off. I believe the concept for the Bantam was a BC,
Yes.
and then MA for Willys and GP for Ford. And I believe that Ford was going all in on this general purpose idea. And that's where the GP stand came from. Thinking maybe Willys was military type A. I have no idea what Bantam was doing. But anyway.
BC Bantam Car Company.
Ah.
So and
Makes sense.
and it's valuable, folks, to say that the two-letter insignia or a level of acronyms have always been part of our big manufacturers.
Yes.
And as you mentioned in the last episode, and folks, if you haven't watched or listened to it, you're going to want to. There are other manufacturers who use, acronym-esque lettering to designate vehicles
And
or body
numbers.
types and numbers.
Yep.
But those cultures, like Jeep culture, they don't actually refer to their truck or their car as those.
It depends on how
numbers.
far down the
Well,
rabbit hole you go.
No
and,
doubt.
And Daddy Jeep is saying BRC was a Bantam reconnaissance vehicle.
Yep.
And he switched it and said car, not vehicle.
Yep.
So
And that's the second one. I was talking about the concepts first, and then the ones that actually were production was BRC, MB, GPW, and I've been itching to do this one all along.
Oh boy.
GPA. And GPA is amphibious.
He was so excited.
Yes.
he was.
His delivery.
Yes.
I was-
if you are not watching us, folks, I mean, and
was
you're
excited.
in your.
You
in
just
your
saw excitement.
he was on- he was on
that
that
was the
Magellan.
most excitement that I think I have seen out of Scott
On an episode?
on an episode
Because only-
ever.
He was
Only
on his adrenaline.
It was on as a gentleman.
So only Ford would be like, I raise you a Jeep that can drive in the water
Yes.
and come back.
Yes.
He's
Amphibious.
still super excited
he
about
is so excited.
Have you tried to make an amphibian vehicle yet?
No.
I feel like you want to.
I think you might. Holy cow.
No, I've
Oh,
seen
and
one
there
of
he
these
goes.
in person, though.
Back to my lazy boy.
Eeyore's back.
I want my cushy lazy boy now.
Yep, 100%. Anyway, so then we go on to civilians, and that obviously is where CJ comes from. And I've heard rumors that there's a CJ1 that's half military, half civilian. Nobody's ever seen it or that kind of stuff.
Your wife just called you out. She goes, he doesn't water well.
Yeah, it's true.
He doesn't. He doesn't like to swim either.
That's
I can't
probably
swim.
why he's
Yeah,
so
he
excited
does-
about an
I
amphibious
drown
vehicle.
really well.
I drown really well. And that's valuable, folks, to hear that by 46, we have the CJ.
45.
45.
Yeah.
Right. And it is what insignia? What letter and number combination?
CJ2A.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. So, and this is what
why
kind
they
of gets.
say it has to be a CJ1 because why did we start at 2?
Yes, and
Because Neil worked there.
yes, that is the reality of the situation, no doubt, and that's the folklore of it, right?
Yes.
Is the fact that there should be a CJ1 somewhere
Yes.
out there.
And like I said, I've seen pictures and early production 2As in 45 had all the tool indents without the stuff to hold the tools on. They were using pieces and parts of military bodies. They wanted to have a vehicle out to production. Someone, was smart and was like, "Hey, we're a small company and we got to act
Right.
because this is our chance.
Yes.
This is our moment." And it was.
It
And
was, and I think it's funny that they used the insignia of the 2A, though,
Mhm.
right? So 2 designating a secondary run,
Yep.
but then the A kind of designating a primary.
Yeah,
you know?
it was almost like they planned from the start that we're going to mess with this.
Correct.
And then obviously we go on to the 3A. Don't know why they didn't move the letter than that one, but
Right.
okay. And then the 3B.
Well, because I still wanted to build that amphibious vehicle.
Well, that was Ford. Any which way.
So the CJ was, I think, we can all, kind of agree on that it literally just stood for civilian Jeep at that
100%.
time.
Yep.
Right, and so to say that we had the military line of production, and then we had the civilian, and that was a marketing piece as well because
Yep.
they were really marketed as a tractor,
So
it was whatever
a
you needed
utilitarian vehicle.
Tony's got the solution for you, Scott. Strap pontoons on your Jeep and an outboard motor. There's your amphibious vehicle.
it to be. Yep.
We don't need to encourage him, folks.
Yep.
We don't need to encourage him.
So any which way. So then we have the 3B, and we have the infamous CJ4
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't exist.
It's
sort
about
of.
as reputable as the CJ1.
I've seen pictures.
Yeah.
Maybe on everything you see on the internet's right?
Oh
Anyway.
yeah, you can believe everything you see on the internet.
And we should probably just go ahead and say we had an M38 during the 3A era. It was military Korean War, and then we had the M38A1, which was a military CJ5. It was before the 5 slice slightly,
Mm-hmm.
and then obviously we have the 5 and 55.
Which again was based off of, it was a civilian production vehicle based off of a military run
100%.
of they first did it for the military contract.
Yep.
Which, like you said, the 38A1.
Yep.
Which is an interesting thing because we have an A and we have a 1, and that's the military. They basically moved all that stuff over for the launch of the 5.
Yep. And then that of course started all the people saying, "I have a early 5. Why does it have this weird box lid thing I can't take off on my cowl? And why does it have this little delete plate on my hood for a snorkel?"
Right.
Because it's military.
Right.
sort
Right.
of panels.
Right. They pulled the panels. They weren't going to, retool.
Restamp.
They
Right.
weren't restamping. They weren't changing the machines. They just somehow, somewhere, the agreement for the military ran out, and they just used the same, the same press. And
I think they were for the 5 specifically. They were doing it at the same time because they were really like this one came out in 54, and this one came out in 55.
Well, I agree. My contention is under standard manufacturing, oftentimes, a company who pays for a machine to do a run,
Yep.
you're not allowed to make other parts off of it. Typically, you can use the machine, but you can't use the die.
They were honey badgers. They didn't care.
Somehow, and again, that person who knows this information, is probably not around anymore.
Yeah.
Or really, the reality that most people besides us don't care.
Yeah, it's probably.
But
true.
I want to know, like, who at the plant was like, "This is the
We're gonna let
military."
the
run.
military pay for the dies, and then we're just gonna make car parts off of them.
That's
on
what
the
I'm
side.
saying. You know what I mean? Like, if
Makes
the
perfect
military
sense to me.
contracted the die for the stamp,
Yeah.
then I want to know, how do we end up getting civilian models off the same
Probably
line?
all the way it was wrote out in the contract.
Oh yeah, which would be fascinating to know.
So then, of course,
For me, I'm the only person.
we
No.
can't. You got to continue on with the CJ6, which is just a long wheelbase 5.
Mhm.
Neil's starting to get excited, obviously, because he loves long wheelbase
I love
Jeeps.
it. I know. I'm giddy. I'm giddy already.
And then we had a military version of that, which I believe was the M170,
Yeah,
which a whole side of it was missing. It was mainly for ambulance.
it was primarily
use.
an ambulance. Yeah, it was a field reconnaissance.
Yeah, passenger door was huge.
Yep.
On that side. Then obviously go on for many years, and then we have the CJ7,
Correct.
and then the next
Released
one
in when? Just for context.
77.
76, 77. Yep.
Yep. And then again he gets excited because the CJ8 comes out, which is again the 7 long.
Yep. Yep. And so we run this. It's important to note we didn't say a CJ1.
Yep.
And
Well, I
that's
sort
for
of did, but-
folklore,
yeah.
right? We have the CJ2, we have a CJ3, we folklore of CJ4s. We
Yep.
don't know exactly what did or didn't happen there.
Yep.
We do absolutely have a 5, we do absolutely have a 6, we have a 7, we have an 8, we do not have a 9,
Nope.
and we do have a 10.
We do have a 10,
And basically the 10 is just a tugboat for land.
unless you're in Australia.
Unless you're Australia,
Yep.
which is a wholly different market in general.
Yes. So then I got a step, it just made sense to keep going up the letter number, but we had to go back and pay tribute to some little offshoots.
I would love to pay tribute to offshoots because we're missing FCs.
We're missing FCs, which was obviously forward control.
Yes.
We had a VJ, which was the Jeepster,
Uh-huh.
two-wheel drive. We had an FJ, which was the delivery van series, which was also mostly two-wheel drive. We had the SFJ, which is, of course, our Wagoneer, our J truck, our full-size Cherokee, that kind of scenario.
Which is full-size Jeep, right?
Yep.
So we went from, the civilian Jeep, and then we have FSJ, full-size Jeep.
Yep. And I'm gonna lean on you for this one.
VJ really doesn't mean anything to my what I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, I don't know. Did the Willys wagons and Willys trucks have anything?
So I actually have a couple times in conversation, kind of thought about this, and to my knowledge, they did not.
Yeah.
So that because that line somehow was wholly separate
Yeah.
from.
They looked at it more like a car than a Jeep.
They did. So I mean, Willys as a manufacturer in that time frame was still making cars
Yeah.
in the 30s and 40s,
in the 50s too.
and into the 50s. And
Yep.
somehow the wagon and the truck line were
They identified it as a Jeep, but they were a car.
correct. They were somehow, on a how I look at markets and how I understand how businesses relate, they were not part of the same department who was pumping out, these utilitarian.
It's weird that the Jeepster yet was though.
Yeah.
But
Now, as we go through these, I know there was one we talked about in a previous episode that was in the rumored in the coal mines underneath the lake.
Oh, we haven't got
I
there
haven't
yet.
got there yet.
Okay.
Still,
Stop
still
trying
yet
to jump
newer.
ship, darn
I
it.
I
We
don't know
were
where that one falls in,
contextualized.
so I'm asking.
Oh, yeah, that comes in late 2000s.
Yeah.
Oh, is
Oh,
that
right now-
that
we should
right
new?
have
now-
done that last episode.
I didn't realize that was that new.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right
Yeah.
now we're still at best we're in the 80s.
Tony, I'm not even going to read that comment.
At best we're in the 80s, and
We're in the mid 60s.
I mean, by a CJ8, we're in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
So that takes us through. But Scott went back to pay honor to to the VJs, to the FCs, to the FJs.
Yeah.
The FJ is a really interesting one, folks. If you are unaware,
Yep.
that it doesn't look like kind
It's
of
sort
anything.
of the early ones sort of have a Jeep grill.
right?
They have a really unique looking windshield that like bumps up forward and up.
yes.
And a lot of milk and bread and other things were delivered.
yeah,
in
they
them,
were a delivery wagon,
but small.
yes.
They were on a.
They were compact. They were, if I recall, they're almost very similar to the transit vans that we have at
Basically.
this market
Just
now.
mini.
So, if you can picture, isn't the transit the minivan looking
yeah,
one?
Yeah, the little Ford.
Yeah, not the Sprinter
Yeah, yeah.
platforms, right? The Sprinter.
I always
Sprinter
forget
platform.
about the little bitty
Yeah,
one.
think about the transits, folks, and the
Yeah.
transits are picked up by a number of fleet manufacturers. And this is what the FJ was meant to compete with. It was meant to deliver in the urban and suburban booming neighborhoods
Yep.
where you needed a small, short delivery vehicle that could easily go from hub to drop off.
Yeah.
And you would be making a bunch of deliveries.
And-
Your wife just chimed in. Willis trucks were 2T and 4T.
Thank you for Googling.
Interesting. But what about the wagons? Because I know the wagons had a whole market. They were really marketed towards the growing, the family that would. Because
Totally.
obviously, as we get away from,
Well,
as
let
we got
her-
away
well,
from
let her
working in
Google.
the.
And I feel like we have to talk about DJs now.
Well,
next.
I think so.
Delivery
I think so.
Jeeps,
Correct.
which
Um,
was traditionally male Jeeps. You could actually get them for other uses. A lot of people use them, or cities use them for like parking meter, that kind of stuff. Where it was literally a two-wheel drive CJ, but they called it a DJ for that.
Right,
purpose.
I
I
mean,
think
it was-
one of my favorite things about the DJ was when we had one in the shop we were working on, and you needed to source a part that wasn't available.
Yep.
What did you do?
It was for Gremlin.
It was for a Gremlin.
Yeah, but the early ones were more like a CJ2 or CJ3
Right.
than what we were working on. That was just the grandson to what we were working on.
okay.
What's really cool is, as you're a Jeep nerd like me, you go along. The DJ line kind of stayed true to the original concept and design, and they just kept using the same straight frame. Where the civilian side actually got a frame with hips, is what I call it.
Yep.
It got a little wider in the back. They didn't feel necessary to do that for the other
Well,
one, and then those stayed short too.
And I know we started these episodes talking about the 2-letter insignias, but obviously it's turned a little bit into what's going on in society at the time.
Yep.
What's happening in marketing.
Yep.
And so ultimately, some of these more obscure 2-letter insignia vehicles are fleet vehicles. Their
So-
intention was to fill a tributary market, and not the
niche.
primary. Yeah, niche
Now,
market.
Tony's asking, dispatch Jeep 5-bar, wasn't it?
They were used for dispatch as well, but I like delivery Jeep better.
Right. Yeah, I
That's
mean,
solely a Scottism, but that's
and the
fine.
grill was different, is what I
They
think.
did
it's
call them
always-
dispatch Jeeps. I saw that on some
Yep, the
literature.
DJ5 dispatch.
Yep.
It was totally a marketing piece because, again, this is a part of the community. These were meant to be hammers, right?
Yes.
So,
They never thought they'd still be around getting used.
correct. This is just meant to fill a fleet capacity.
And I'll put this in here just because I literally talk about this a lot, and people always go, really? You could order all these Jeeps pretty much the way you wanted to. If you didn't want a passenger seat, you didn't get one.
Yes.
If you didn't want a spare tire, you didn't get one.
Mm-hmm. You didn't want a tailgate. You didn't have to have one.
you didn't have to have a tailgate. So
You didn't have to have doors.
you didn't have to have doors. You could literally go in and get something that you could sit in, and that was it. Because maybe you were going home and you're bolting a Hobart welder into it,
Mhm.
and you didn't need the passenger seat because it was actually in your way. You could chisel that price down as low as possible.
Mm-hmm.
It was really an interesting thing. And they did that all the way up into the 80s.
Right. Well, and I think that, and again, we'll just go back and contextualize. That's why some of these maintenance wasn't done on them, the fleet vehicles. So
Yeah.
the DJs kind of fall by the wayside because you've got people who are just showing up to use them for for work.
Yep.
They're beating the tar out of them. They're just a big tool. The
Yep.
delivery vans, they're just being used to deliver goods. The
Daddy Jeep might be onto something. The dispatch is a left-hand drive version of the DJ.
okay.
Ah.
And there is absolutely a right-hand drive version.
Yep.
Yep.
And which is super cool. There's actually a number of these. Then when we get into special order history, and that doesn't even take us into dealer options, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
ultimately, we could actually have a segment just on history of Jeeps as far as special orders,
Yep.
and then what standard option standard was, what your options were,
Mm-hmm.
and then your special order, and then your dealer options.
And
And
I
we'll
think-
talk about that another
I
time.
think it really, like, you can claim it up in one sentence, is that Jeep has always been owned by a broke manufacturer.
Always.
So if somebody's coming up and willing to put money in your pocket, they will make what you want.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to order thousands of them.
Right, and that's the thing. They've always tried to fill those markets, which now you see Ford trying to do a lot of,
100%.
as far as how they're trying to fill those contracts as well.
Yeah.
And just because because this is where my brain works, we're actually seeing a bunch of of startup auto manufacturers trying to fill those fleet contract agreements.
100%.
But historically, they were Jeeps.
Yep.
So let's move on. Let's stay on our 2-letter insignias, and maybe we'll come back to those
I feel-
topics in the near future.
I feel like we have to talk about the M715 just for 2 seconds,
Oh.
just because that's the military.
Man, there's so
truck
much military
version
stuff, though.
of a Gladiator pickup truck, and they obviously have the ambulance version of that. I think that was a 725 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, 725.
It's basically the same thing, but a big box on the back.
Yep.
So then we go into. I feel like we can go right into the YJ at this
I was
point.
going to say, let's stay the line. Let's stay the course, because I think we have another show kind of fledgling here
Yeah.
we could talk about. Let's get right into the Yuppie Jeep.
Yes, the Yuppie Jeep. Sorry.
So
It's
we
coming
don't
from a true YJ lover too.
It is, and we don't exactly have great historical context as to why all of a sudden
I'll just
snubbed
tell
our
the,
nose
the
at the
snub-
CJ.
the folklore.
Okay.
The story I was told is that a rich college kid's dad bought him a Jeep, and they did what college kids do, and they rolled the Jeep over with people standing up in the Jeep, and people got hurt,
Okay.
and they blamed Jeep.
Well, it was popular then.
Yeah. So Jeep, for whatever reason, if that's true or not true, made an effort to take a similar design body and lower it and make it closer to the ground and wider,
Mm-hmm.
and to go in and give an effort for fuel injection and some other new technology to get integrated into that vehicle. And for whatever reason, they put square headlights on it, and then everybody got upset.
So, real quick, Amy's now saying C101 and C104.
Oh, those are
Jeep Commandos.
Commandos.
I got you. I beat you to it. I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure I got it out real quick because I know how much you love them, and I
Yes.
wanted to jump in there.
Yep.
And of course, that's again our combination of letters and numbers in that
Yep.
regard. If we stay the course of what's historically happening, a little less folklorish, but arguably less entertaining. Basically, AMC is going broke fast.
All the manufacturers that have owned Jeep have gone broke.
Right. Seems like there's a
Willys went broke.
Like a pattern
Kaiser went
there.
broke. AMC went broke.
right.
Chrysler wasn't doing so hot there.
So AMC's going broke. They've developed a relationship with Renault
Yes.
and then
it made the government angry.
and made the government angry, which we've talked about
I think he
before.
was practicing that
He
accent.
loves doing that.
I think he was practicing before the show, though, just so he
and,
can say it.
Totally was.
and then so we've got Chrysler coming in, right? And
Yes.
Chrysler's kind of hot on the ticket now. We've already got square headlights because it's the 80s,
Yes.
and the
Everything
80s,
should have square headlights.
everything should be square.
Yes.
And we've rejected our heritage of round headlights on all the vehicles, right?
Yes.
And we've seen from big truck auto manufacturers to car manufacturers getting
Everybody.
away from
And then if
that
one square
standard.
headlight's good, two are better.
Two or better.
Yes.
And that was a defining moment
that was our
of the
generation.
80s.
That was our childhood.
Yes. Because ultimately that round 7-inch headlight had its place in iconic American history. It wasn't
Yeah.
just Jeeps, and that's
No, everything
valuable.
had round headlights.
Everything had that 7-inch round,
Yep.
and then you had other sizes of the round headlights as well. So, as a Chrysler trying to modernize the vehicle and appeal to a broader market, because they of course did have this utilitarian stigma that they needed to
Yes.
break from.
Yep.
They were trying to remarket themselves with the YJ. Now,
Yep.
again, we don't know exactly where that 2-letter insignia came from, but we do know that they lowered it, they
Yep.
widened the frame, they widened the spring
They
perches,
tried to make the top better.
they tried to make the top a little bit better.
Tried to do a little bit with the engine.
They didn't change the width of the Jeep.
Nope.
That's valuable, folks, right? Because it's arguably kind of the same-ish
I've
body
literally-
style.
So I've literally measured this, and the back half of a Willys 2A and the back half of a TJ are the same width.
Which is great. Which is a great piece of
We just kept
tidbit of information.
moving
you
things
know?
around slightly, but
Yeah, because
same
they're
design.
not trying to break anything that's they're not trying to fix anything that's not totally broken, right? So ultimately, they move into the YJ. They're trying to overcome the stigma, and they're really trying every time in the last 30 plus years, it's about introducing a new individual to the brand.
Yes.
These folks who make it at this top level, they're not dumb. As
No.
much as we question some of the decisions that they make, they understand that they have to continue to revitalize the line, because quite frankly, we're not going to stop loving our vehicles, our platforms,
Right.
But they have to attract new people into the line.
And even I think they've always had this hate of the new brand or the new open top Jeep, because back in the day, they literally sold the old model and the new model side by side,
Mhm.
like we saw a little bit with the JK and the JL, just so that when the guy was in there, you've ruined it, you screwed it up. Well, guess what? We'll actually sell you a brand new old
The
one.
5 and the 7, a perfect example.
5 and the 7, the 3B and the CJ5 they did same time.
Yes.
They make a Jeep for grumpy people. And every model has hated on the new model.
Right.
And, 5s thought doors on the 7s were stupid. Willie's guys hated the 5s. It just is what it is.
Yep. So let's talk about the Dark Horse that was released in '84 under a combination.
The XJ.
The XJ.
Yep.
Right? So that XJ came out before the YJ. And that's
Yes.
important to know when we get into this next course of lettering, that the XJ, which is our loved and favorite station wagon of the more compact style,
Yep.
comes out in '84. And now, for whatever reason, we jump to the end of the alphabet.
Yep.
Right? Because we have the XJ in '84.
Yep.
And we have the YJ in '87.
Yep.
Now I'm going to skip over my absolute favorite platform, and I'm going to go to the ZJ in '93.
You're not gonna do MJ.
I'm going to come. Well, there it is.
Okay.
You let the cat out of the bag.
Well, it's before that.
I know, and that's why I said I'm going to skip over it. And
The
and
ZJ's in '93.
that's what I said. You-
He did say he was going to
literally, I told you what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And you came back to it
I couldn't do it.
anyways.
Couldn't-
You
had to
couldn't.
right or wrong.
You had to right or wrong.
This
Well, I
is why
just
we
think it's-
couldn't start from new.
I know. I
Right.
know. I just think it's interesting that we land on XYZ.
Yeah.
Somebody in the marketing department understood what they were doing. They understood the assignment.
Oh, yeah.
Now, let's go back, since you already talked about it, and my hands down favorite vehicle.
Darla's saying, I didn't even know these existed.
Yeah, well, that's why we're talking about Darla.
Yep.
So go ahead.
Oh, isn't it? Wasn't it '86 was when the MJ
Yes.
came
Yep.
out?
So we have the MJ,
Yes.
which doesn't fit
Anywhere.
anywhere.
Nope.
It,
But if you know, you know. It's Comanche for those that don't know.
and I don't understand where the M specifically came from.
Don't know.
And again, this is just adds to the lore of these
Medium
acronyms.
truck? I don't know.
It came from the nickname Manchi instead of Comanche.
Right? Did it come from Manchi? Did it come from medium truck, not
I don't know.
full size truck?
Yeah, maybe.
Right. We
medium.
didn't have a compact market yet. We didn't actually know that mini trucking until
Tony's saying, is it the Michael Jackson edition?
and welcome to the '80s, folks.
Yes. Yeah, and there was a compact market, just nothing in the Jeep line before that part.
Well, the compact market existed, but we didn't have the same appreciation for it that we
Yeah.
then run into mini trucking in the '90s.
Totally.
Right? It was still this kind of utilitarian. You didn't want to bring a full size truck to the conversation.
Yep.
Because the El Camino was arguably the Ranchero. The El Camino was this weird crossover.
Yep.
Well,
Well, it's important note too. The S10 came out in '82, so
Correct.
Chevy got their jump on it.
Chevy got a jump on it. The Ranger comes out somewhere in there. Toyota had already been doing weird things for years.
Well, and their trucks were smaller because they're for overseas.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Mazda and so on and so forth. And Nissan hard bodies are out in that era. Really,
Yeah.
we could have another episode
Oh,
of,
yeah.
of mini trucking, and where the MJ fit in there. But ultimately, we have this whole slew of 2-letter insignia vehicles that we really start to brand the vehicle with its model name or with
Yep.
with it. We really start to use that because obviously the CJ2A was just known as a CJ or
Yep.
CJ2A.
Yep.
Right? Because it really wasn't called a model. It wasn't called a Wrangler.
No.
Right? A CJ5 wasn't called anything but a CJ5 or a
Yep.
CJ7. You had again models and trim packages. We talked about Laredos and Renegades and
Yeah,
so on and
they
so
really
forth.
broke from that in '87 with the YJ. The YJ suddenly it became That's our insignia, and we're going to tell you it's a Wrangler, and
And
sell
we're going
it
to tell you it's
as
a Wrangler. And so is born the Wrangler. And it, as the YJ runs until through 95, and it's discontinued by 96 for the introduction of
The TJ.
the TJ.
Yeah, we're just jumping all over.
We're
the place.
just jumping all over the alphabet.
Yes.
We're going to jump in again because Amy's asking, have you heard of a DJ5E?
I can legitimately say I have never heard of a DJ 5E.
Yeah, I don't know what the E would be, other than maybe electrified. Maybe
Well-
it was battery back then, because they did tattle on that all the way through.
I think that's
for the last 100
blasphemy. I
years.
think that's blasphemy, but that's fine. Whatever. It's interesting to even think about that. I'm wondering where she's going to go with that. And,
Yeah.
that'd be interesting feedback, but I have not heard of that. So at that time in the 90s, at this point in time, we still have the ZJ.
Yep.
We still have the XJ.
Yep.
And now we've released the TJ.
Yep.
Jeep's line at that point, folks, was limited to those 3 models.
Mm-hmm.
Where, go ahead,
You're in trouble.
go ahead.
It is a dispatcher that's electric with an exclamation point. Jeez.
I want to know the history on it. I mean, we'll talk about it in the future.
Yeah,
I'm
they,
saying
they did a lot of that in the
We're-
70s.
We're
Yes.
going to make
during
an
that oil
episode
crisis.
out of electric vehicles and talk about
Oh,
this.
we could do that.
we could do that. Totally. I'm here for
I got the books.
entirely.
I can look up the turn of the century ones.
Oh, yeah, because there's great history. That or failed diesel as well would
Yeah.
be one of my favorite alternatives.
Alternative fuel episode.
Yep.
Yes.
So, or series, because obviously we know
Oh,
we
that
can't
would totally
focus
go
this
into a
conversation.
series.
I mean, we're already beyond our time frame for today, and we're still going.
No. Okay, I think
Yeah, we haven't even.
we
barely
haven't
gotten
even,
into the 2000s.
we haven't even gotten into the 2000s.
I know.
All right, folks. Well, hopefully you're still with us. You haven't fallen asleep, jumped on that conference call, or or had to
No,
move
they're
on
all
with the day.
Googling now Jeeps they
Yeah,
didn't know existed.
Googling and trying to stump us
Well,
with Jeeps they didn't
That's
know
because
existed.
Amy's up to 10 different TJ models now. So.
Well, the TJs were fine. We'll
DJ,
circle.
DJ, sorry.
Oh, DJs.
Oh yeah. I'm
We
not
will
surprised.
circle back to. We're going to pick up in the 90s, and honestly, that's good. We're going to have to cover this because we're getting into some of my favorites.
Mhm.
So Bill's saying the Canadian Postal Jeep was a DJ5E.
The Canadian
Yeah,
Postal.
I wouldn't have
Jeep.
picked that if you would have of all the places to have an early electric vehicle would not be in Canada. If you would have asked me that.
Oh,
Tony-
Canada.
There's the singing. We knew it was going to happen. We talked about it earlier when you weren't here.
Just doesn't cold and batteries not.
I want to know more. We're going to find this out. But we're-
Tony said we have to kidnap Neil's Jeep and stick a Prius electric motor in it.
not a Prius.
Yeah, he needs bigger than that.
I need bigger than that. I need
Um,
bigger.
Darla goes, of course you're going to stop at the TJs.
We're going to stop at the TJs.
And Chuck is saying beer Jeep. Eh?
Looks like we're going to be spilling our alpha boot. I am so sorry. Ish. Northern America and
They're
Canada.
expecting it by now.
We're gonna be talking about
Oh,
alpha boot
boy.
Jeep soup next week. Yet again.
Are you trying to do the Minnesota thing?
I
again?
don't
Yes,
know.
he is.
I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to, but it just is happening. I feel the spirit here. All right. We need to transition to
we need to
hashtag not
transition, Jeff.
sponsored
Oh, boy.
and come back and talk about switch systems.
Yep.
And now it's time for our product spotlight.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Spotlight.
Hashtag not sponsored.
It's fitting that it's a trigger.
It's a trigger.
It's a
If you're feeling
great
triggered,
segue.
folks,
Great segue.
I sort of don't apologize.
Yeah.
We are going to be talking about the trigger switch system,
Yep.
produced by a company, Advanced Accessory Concepts, and it's kind of an interesting product that was born out of a couple companies, kind of, I don't know, merging, acquiring, being bought and sold, and an individual, an engineer, kind of, going out on his own. And it's a kind of interesting. It holds a special place in my heart. And Greg, our lead performance mechanic, and we use this product a lot. And it's actually probably I would call it probably the most underrated switch system on the market because it was confusing when it came out, and therefore it people didn't give it the time to figure it out.
And really what they brought to the market, that we got all excited about is anybody that's installed an electric device on their vehicle, they always, usually it's fog lights or something, and you're all excited. You put them on the front, and you run the wires to the battery, and then suddenly you have a oh crap moment.
Yeah.
How do I get the wires inside the vehicle to hook it to the switch?
And we have seen some absolutely terrible
and creative.
Creative is a word. I'm going to call them terrible, folks, where the wire is just ran
out
the hood, around the door,
Yep.
Pinched in the sharp metal of the hood.
Oh, yeah.
They drill holes through the firewall and not use one of the appropriately grommeted spaces.
Yes.
And now the wire is just sitting there
or
chafing.
you have a really nice boot right from the factory that isolate, keep the mice out of the interior, and they just jab a hole in there and shove their wires through.
Yeah. And there was a period of time in the mid 2000s where JKs were really exploding, and people wanted to accessorize with lights and other goodies, and they needed lots of switches inside their Jeep.
All of them.
Yeah, and we could totally go back to, it was the 90s, and I was making a switch panel with my mom in my center console. A beautiful switch panel because we needed to do those things, but we had to run the wires inside, and I ended up with like a cable this big around because all the lights and all the sound and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And we had to run them to a switch panel, a physical switch panel, which was the market was largely dominated by a product called the S-Pod.
Yeah.
Right?
And that
In
was
the
you trying to
2000s.
do it like as nice as you could.
As nice as possible. And the S-Pod did really good things for the market. But here along comes this idea that maybe I don't actually need those wires to come in to the cabin.
Yep.
If I was able to wirelessly communicate with a control module that was appropriately installed under the hood.
Yep.
And then ultimately, since most of our accessories are forward of the cowl, the firewall, that we really didn't need to bring those wires inside.
Yep.
That they could stay on the outside of the vehicle.
And then the best part, because it's wireless and everybody's got a computer in their pocket,
we can control it via Bluetooth.
Yep.
Okay. So
I'm gonna grab the box from behind you there.
Oh, okay. That's fine. For our listeners who are, not able to see, the module is all of 4 inches by 6 inches.
Yep.
It comes in 2 different versions. So the box is rather big, but the module is actually pretty compact. So it comes in what's called a 4-shooter and a 6-shooter versions.
Yep. Just the
And
amount of switches you get.
It's just the 6 is you got 6 switches, and the 4 is 4. Go figure. And then there's little independent leads off of each unit.
Yep.
Now, it's important to note that this operates on RF frequency.
Yep.
So,
Which is what a remote control is.
which is what a remote control works off of. So we can all remember, kind of in the 90s when we started playing with RF a lot.
Yeah.
There was the one kid in class who had the watch he could turn on and off the teacher's, TV that
Of course.
rolled in on the big old
And
cart.
at some point in your childhood, at least in our childhood, you got the second TV.
Yeah.
And then you had to screw with Dad.
Oh, you had to screw with that because now you had an extra remote.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Oh my goodness. And
Hours of fun.
Not in my household. My father would take me outside and beat me. I don't know what was going on in your
My
household.
dad was in the garage. I was picking on my mom.
We had a TV, and you didn't mess with that remote. And if the remote went missing, I
You were
was
the remote. Yes.
Trigger.
I remember that.
Trigger.
So, anyways, if you live in Arizona, this is great because it's good up to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know why you need it to be that good.
Well, because ultimately it goes under the hood.
Just
right?
so it builds heat in there, yeah.
Because XJs run at 280,000 degrees.
That's probably
yes.
true.
It is about the temperature of the sun underneath
It's also
XJ Cherokee's
also
hood.
good below zero.
Yep.
It is.
And if you
waterproof.
live in Seattle, it's waterproof.
Yes.
Well,
Or
if I-
here.
are.
Where we're just stereotyping places now. Apparently, if we're just going in, we're going all in.
If you're gonna do the accents, I might as well call out the places.
I'm gonna start doing accents for each place then. Apparently,
What's your Seattle accent?
I know. I'm gonna choose not to use that.
And obviously we have an app for those Apple people.
It's,
And
I feel
the-
called out now.
Yeah.
So you can do
and
it
the
on your
regular
phone.
people, all the other people. There's an app for that too.
Wow.
Yes.
Talk about a trigger.
There is actually for people who still want to actually have a physical control, there is actually hard switches that come with this.
No, Chuck, it is not fireproof.
No. And
Might have a bad time.
Fire burns a lot hotter than 250.
and it is integrated. It has fuses built into it.
Yep.
And it has kind of an override, so you can control it from under the hood as you're checking the products that you've that you
Wired.
have wired to it.
All the pigtails are got a weather seal on them, so they'll-
Yep. So there's actually 3 ways to control this unit, and so that's
Yep.
what a lot of people ask. Well, what if I don't want to use Bluetooth or my phone? Now,
Open your hood. You're good.
open your hood, you can use it and test things. Obviously, our newest Jeeps, some folks have, actually like a tablet in their computer. You could have the Bluetooth control up.
Totally.
And you could be actuating and turning off air compressors or lockers, all via Bluetooth
Yeah.
if you
If
chose.
you can put an app on it, you can control this.
Right. We've had good and bad with it. We've learned things as far as garage door openers,
Yep.
certain working on RF frequency, certain high-powered remote controls.
Yep.
As far as your RC controls and that kind of stuff, if they were more of your rudimentary RF. Now, they actually went back and did a redesign
Yeah, it's a
per our
2.4
suggestion somewhere in
gigahertz
there.
now.
Yes. And they actually managed years ago. We had done one of these actually on a Cherokee, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
And the garage door or like a light or something was messing with the customer's Jeep.
Yep.
They went ahead and they did a redesign, and now most of those problems do not exist anymore.
Yep.
It does if you wire it hot all the time, because it is Bluetooth.
It's always looking.
It will always be looking for Bluetooth signal. So if you wire it non-ignition hot, that means that it is constantly has power. It's going to constantly be looking for Bluetooth. So we would not recommend this with a vehicle that is driven infrequently.
Yes.
You want to wire it and then use it on a Jeep that is constantly recharging its battery source,
Yep. Or
Or-
just make it keyed hot.
or make it keyed hot.
Yep.
Yep.
Which really, if we're all honest, that's when you use all your accessories.
Use
anyway.
all your accessories anyways. People might, you might say, well, I want to use my compressor when the Jeep's off. That's fine as long as you're constantly using your Jeep and the battery is being tended
Yep.
or recharged.
I'll say if you're using your compressors, you probably have the Jeep running anyway. Just to put juice back in it.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. So there are little things like that where there is merit in just doing keyed hot. So as I like to say with most of our products, there are pros and cons with just about everything that we use and do in the market. But
Something I think is really cool is they have little stickers that goes on the switches themselves, so you can make them say what you want them to. That lights up underneath that. I think there's even creative and fun ones, if I remember right.
There are. And so I would say that this is one of, for people who know they like this unit, but it is reasonably a little underrated by comparison to a lot of the other systems on the market. Again, the idea is the advantage is you don't have to pull any wires into the cabin.
Yep.
You're wiring under the hood, and then you're using either the app or their rechargeable wireless rocker switch panel itself. So, cool product made by again wireless. It's Advanced Accessory Concepts Trigger. So cool stuff there.
Yep.
All right, folks, we are moving on in our day. We have Jeeps to work on. We've got cool stuff to do. Make sure that we are sharpening our axe, which is a tribute to the other podcast Jeff and I are working on in the background. When that launches, you're going to want to be part of it. And we're going to be launching it in April.
I was going to say, are we going to reveal the date?
We are. We're gonna reveal the date. We're gonna be launching that on April 19th on your favorite streaming platform. So if you are one of our national and international listeners who enjoy this podcast, that's going to be a podcast geared towards leadership, entrepreneurship, self-development, motivation, those kinds of good things that get us through the day.
If you're on Patreon, it will be releasing sooner on there, so you can kind of listen to the episodes ahead of time before the full scheduled release. So if you're not on Patreon, go check that out. Again, 3 different tiers available.
Yep, it's a little more of a potentially intense conversation about what makes us tick, as far as the concepts that are what are reasonably unique to making SFJ 4x4 the secret sauce that it is. So kind of an interesting thing there that we're working on the side. We're obviously going to have to talk about Jeep Alphabet Soup next week for at least a little bit, so that we can address appropriately the TJs and obviously the LJs.
Of course.
And Dub Js.
You mean the TJL?
And the Dub Js. Yeah. And so you will not want to miss that. We will be taking Easter Monday off from being live, folks, so we're sorry that we will not get to celebrate Easter with you directly. Whether or not we have a episode for you pre-recorded will yet to be determined, so we'll keep you posted on that one next week to talk about that. And then again, a few weeks after that, we will have the American Hustle, which is that side project that's been coming out as well. Without further ado, we've got work to do. We got Jeeps to build, cool things to make happen, and dreams to come true. Thank you, folks, for joining us. Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Jeep on.